Welcome from Pledge Donor Organization co-founder James Aldridge and co-founder Reverend L. Henderson Bell. We are very excited you've taken this opportunity to establish your own personal charitable foundation. As with any new venture, education is the key to success, and this is just as important when the new venture is a venture of giving back. To this end, the PDO proudly presents the following step-by-step grant writing and funds development made easy academy. As a new family member to the concept of charitable giving through a personal family charitable foundation, you will discover that this co-production educational course between the PDO and Certified Dream Builders Incorporated will be informative as well as instructional. To this end, it is the PDO's purpose to provide the necessary tools to assist its members in the successful establishment and operation of your new foundation and achievement of its goals. So let's get started by reading carefully the introduction to your course studies and then move forward to your videotape course classes. Fast forward, rewind, pause, and stop. Through this unique video course study program, you now have full control over the pace of the classes as you move toward your successful fund development goals. As a special note, we now embrace you and your family into the PDO mission of improving lives in the communities we serve. The school bell is ringing. See you after class.
Thank you, Mrs. Aldridge, and I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to see some of the same faces that I saw before and that you decided to pursue this, because I'm telling you, I know nonprofits, I know grants, but the foundations was a new ball game for me. And after studying what he was talking about and finding that he was so right on point and how much we are just not knowledgeable of that side of it, I was blown away. I was blown away when I found that most foundations that give out money, in fact, 66% of them have less than $1 million. They're small, and why do they open? I'm sure he's told you because of all the benefits. When I got to reading the benefits, I was like, oh my Lord, this is amazing. So I am impressed with you that you saw it before I did. I came on to help with the grant writing, but when I started seeing the possibilities, I was just totally blown away. So I'm so grateful to be a part of this. Now, as far as the grant writing is concerned, we're going to jump right in. I'm going to skip this because this is just some of the other classes. You will see the flash drive there, and hopefully most of you already have that. Last time I went rather fast because we didn't have a lot of time, and I have never really been able to give this the amount of time that it needs so that people can really get a good grasp and be able to actually leave. Now, I've had some grant writers to come 2 or 3 times to my classes, and they've been really successful. I think I told you about one lady. I know she's well over $1 million, and other people have gotten a lot of grants for their own organization. And I might have mentioned a man to you the last time that I was here. I had put together a $100 million grant. Did I mention that one the last time? Well, they were supposed to tell us if we were going to be in the top 10 last year, but because Trump was upstaging everybody, and every time anybody got ready to announce anything, it seemed like Trump did something, sent out a tweet or whatever. So they decided to put it off until after inauguration. So January 31st, I believe that we will hear the word. Now, the word would be that we'll be in the top 10. So this is for $100 million for a grant that would change the world. The guy that I'm working with has been getting feedback from them daily, so we are hoping that we're in the top 10. And if we are in the top 10, you will see us because it will be televised. So, and I'm excited about that, but I can't clap yet. But I will tell you about grants. Grants are much better than gambling in the stock market because you have lots of high risk over there. But with grants, usually it's 1 to 200, 1 to 400. Now, where we are with the 100 million, we are still closer to like 1 to 400 because they have eliminated 6,000, about 200 organizations, 6,600 organizations, and we're still in. And even though we're still waiting on the 100 million, he has gotten a couple 100,000 already from other organizations helping out. So he's well on his way. And he was a person who was brand new, had no real experience, He incorporated in June of last year. He was brand new. When he came to me, he was about to give up. So what he did was he partnered with other people, and that helped him. I just want to let you know that this is real. This is not fake. This is real. So hopefully you will get to find out. I'm just really praying that we move forward so that you will get to see for yourself that it is real. So as far as networking is concerned, you can do networking because you need to know other organizations. As you are trying to get funding, you cannot get it by yourself. You cannot work alone. You have to work with a group, because maybe what you're missing, someone else had. The guy that I'm working with, he is about 70 something, and he said, "Miss White, I just want to do this before I die. I just want to do this before I die." So he didn't really have the partners that he needed. So now he has a NASA engineer, he has UMKC, he has all these people. So depending on what you're doing, you may have to get other people of interest. And some people say, "Well, how am I going to do that? I'm nobody knows me." All you got to do is say that you have the right grant and you need a partner to work with you. And in most cases, people will jump at the chance, especially if they know that you're going to do the legwork for the grant. So you won't have problem finding funders. I'm telling you, this person was about to give up when I met him in a restaurant back in June. A little later than that, maybe earlier than that, maybe May. So as I said, since then, he has a NASA astronaut, physicist, all the people that he needed, because he's doing something that's high tech. So all the people are in place. Why? Because they wanted to be a part of this grant. So you are going to have to become really good at networking and talking and meeting people. The way we have this broken up is we have session 1, which is before you write the grant, before you write. And that's going to be tonight. And there's a lot of things that you have to do before you actually write. Then the components of most grants would be the second session. The third session is a practicum. We're going to actually write a grant. I'm going to show you tonight where I have embedded some grants in that flash drive, and some of you may go tonight and just kind of click that flash drive if you have a computer or have somebody with one. I have embedded some grants in there. We're going to try. We're going to try one. And then the second one is finalizing that grant so that before you leave this class, you have one that you can submit. You have one that you can submit. So that's what we're going to try to do. And this is my first time doing this. I put this particular session together just for you. All right, so the objective of the whole workshop is to introduce new or existing organizations to an exclusive grant writing system, because some of you may be organized a different way, but existing organizations to an exclusive grant writing system that will help you write quality grants to support your mission in half the time. Now, your mission, when you're doing philanthropic type work with a private foundation, has to be civic oriented. So what you're doing has to be civic. I had somebody come to me the other day, said, "Well, I want to open a detail shop, and I want a grant to open a detail shop." I'm like, "You may not get a grant to open a detail shop, but if you're going to train some other people to do detail, then you might be able to get a grant because you're going to train some other people." I want to do a lawn service. Well, you're probably not going to get a grant or the funding to do the lawn service unless you've got the credit. But if you want to go and do the lawns of senior citizens, then there's grant money. Now, there is business related to your 501c3. You cannot just start an organization. It's a business. It is a business with a civic undertones, and you are helping your community. So whatever you're doing, you're going to be helping your community. So this is going to teach you how to write quality grants to support your mission in half the time. So your mission is always at the forefront, whatever that is. When I was reading about the foundation, it was so good how we don't really think about this, but how the foundation leaves a legacy long after you're gone. Because even after you're gone and generations are gone, that foundation is still there. But I thought it was just the really wealthy. Oh my God. Once I really started learning the benefits, I'm like, oh my, it makes no sense not to have one. But you know, when I looked, there was 5,000 in this country. You know how many people are in this country? Mm-hmm. There's 5,000. And then I started thinking about what a jewel you guys have that would share this information with you. So it's a great thing. The workshop includes tools, tips, techniques for making your grant more attractive for funding, finding the commonalities and differences, because that's what's going to make you be able to write a grant when you thought maybe I couldn't. Finding those commonalities and differences in the RFPs, which stands for Request for Proposal. Locating sample grants, locating open grants, and step-by-step instructions for using the exclusive questionnaire that we're going to have. And I've even broken the questionnaire up into 2 different stages so that it makes it a lot easier for you to digest. Okay, before you write. I had mentioned this before, that the only reason that these people are going to dump money in your lap, I pray, is because you're going to carry out one of their missions. There are foundations out there, other foundations with money, if you're doing the right thing or if you're doing something they want to fund. There are corporations out there, and they have lots of money. I think I might have shown you the last time you were here, the U.S. debt clock. I don't know, did I show the U.S. debt clock before? How the businesses their coffers are full. When you're getting ready to write grants, especially the way that I teach it in half the time, you want to be sure that you know the types of grants. And there are several types. The first type of grant that I'm going to talk about is the seed grant. The seed grant is a grant for brand new organizations. You need papers, pencil, staple paper clips, all of those different types of things. That's what the seed money grant would pay for. The next type of grant is the planning grant. And the planning grant is very similar to a seed grant. And those grants can go to some new organizations, but mostly they go to organizations that are 3 years old or more. 3 years old or more. So if you are brand new, how could you apply for a planning grant if they say they want the organization to be 3 years? The way that you could do that is partner with an organization. That's why partnerships is so important. You partner with an organization, and that gives you a little bit of muscle for your organization. So that's why when you would consider that. In planning grants, organizations who have been around a while, it will help you with starting a new program. Maybe you've already been existing for years, but all of a sudden you know that the tides have changed, the words that they're using have changed. Instead of them dealing with domestic violence, now they're dealing with homelessness. Instead of them dealing with women's issues, they're dealing with fatherless children or whatever, and you realize, wow, I need to change my focus, because sometimes nonprofits say, well, we're not going to run after the money. Well, I will tell you about these planning grants. You want to make sure that you're providing the services that are needed. So if you're doing that, what the planning grant will allow you to do is to change your focus so that you could get everything situated and be ready to go after that next grant. Our next grant is the Equipment and Facilities Grant. The Equipment and Facilities Grant is for capital expenditures like property that costs $5,000 or more. In fact, you could probably write down the $5,000. We're talking about cars, we're talking about buildings, anything that is going to cost you $5,000 or more. Now, there are some exceptions to this rule, and that is if whatever you're buying is going to become a part of your implementation. So you want to consider that when you're looking at capital expenditures. If you can tie it to the implementation, it might be part of your supply. A lot of grants will not pay for equipment and facilities or capital grants. Another word for the equipment and facilities grants is capital, so keep that in mind. Endowments. Now, some of you, when you really start raking in the dough, you might start giving out endowments. So what an endowment is, it's a foundation that gives out money, and it's mostly to the colleges and some of the family foundations because they don't ever want to run out of money. So what they do is to UMKC. Maybe I kind of mentioned that I'm working with Charles Koch. So what he does is he gives money to schools for entrepreneurship, but they can't spend the money he gave them. They can only spend the interest. So as a foundation, you can make decisions as to how you're going to give out your money. So as I was reading about the foundations, it says that your name could live on. For them, that's really important. You want the name to live on, you know, for year after year after year, because they never can spend the principal. So that college has that money forever. We don't take advantage of that either, because if your kids are having trouble at school and they're about to have to drop out because they don't have any money, make sure they go to the financial aid office and ask about endowments, because 99.9% of the colleges have endowments, and you may not know. If you don't ask, the college is not going to tell, because they don't have to spend that money unless somebody comes in with that particular need. I taught that class at UMKC, and this lady had her daughter going to one of the big 5 colleges, and her daughter was able to stay in because she went and asked about endowments, and they had all the money that child needed. So keep that in mind. But that's what the endowments are. So hopefully you guys are setting yourself up to set up those endowments. So they can't spend the money you gave them. They have to keep that money and just generate interest. They have to generate interest, yes.
Okay, so your foundation would be holding the principal?
That's
and just
probably going to be an
donating
agreement.
interest?
That's probably going to be an agreement. And I can't get into the legalities of that. I think that could possibly be either way. I would think most smart foundations would probably hold the money, letting them know that they have access to that amount, but they can only use the interest. Yeah, so I would say that money sits in the foundation's coffers, but you'll have to go, I'm going to research that. I will have an answer for you at the next session though, for sure, whether it sits in your coffers or sits in theirs. And the way they were talking about it, it seemed like it was going to sit in your coffers, because it was saying that your name, sometimes the money that you give would go on much longer than the amount you gave. Because, you know, I was wondering why so many of these grants get $500, $1,000. To me, I'm like, why even bother? Because I want 50,000 or more. And a lot of the grants foundations would only get 500, because I didn't realize so many foundations, 66% of them only have 250,000 or less. They don't have all of that big money like when you think Kauffman Foundation and all of that. They're taking advantage of this, because you get to take tax write-offs before you ever give a dime out to anybody, and before it's funded, from what I read. So you might want to read some more, and I even embedded some in here so that you can read a little bit more and know that this is some kind of major instrument you're dealing with. Yes.
So if you got a school loan, can you go to the university and get an endowment to pay off your loan?
That's probably too late. No, you have to go to them before you ever get the loan, so that they can pay off your tuition, but most people just don't know about it. Yeah, it's probably not going to do your loan, but if you got a child that's in school right now, before they get the loan, go for the endowment. Yes.
Now, I do have clients, large clients, that they set up endowments as a means of saying, well, I'm donating 2.5 million for this purpose. But they don't release the principal when they do an endowment. What they do is, like you said, they put it into a particular investment, and then they pay you, they donate out the interest until that 2.5 million has fully been funded. So they don't release the principal. They still hold on to the principal.
And from what I read, I kind of figured it was that way, but I hadn't read enough to say that definitively. So that's why I didn't want to say that. But I'm telling you, it's a major instrument. I speak no lie. And I've learned this since I've been researching to try to do this for you, that it's a major instrument. I've been working with nonprofits forever, but I just did not realize the benefits of it. I did not realize the total benefit. I'm basically doing 501c3s, setting them up, trying to help get grants, but not seeing that you can put your insurance under there and all of this, and you know, because you can't write nothing off. This becomes it would pay for it for you. Okay, so management and technical assistance grants, a lot of times those are not cash. Those are grants that are going to give you some help, because knowledge is power, and information is only good if you get it and use it. That knowledge is only power if you get it and use it. If you just get it and don't do nothing with it, it's not going to help you any. So you have to get the knowledge and then use it. But there's some people out there that can help you. I opened a child care center in about 1989. I graduated college and I was thinking, what am I going to do? And I love my baby, so I figured I'm going to open a child care center because that way I can take care of my own babies. I don't have to send them out. I had this one little middle child that every daycare I took him to, he cried. So I'm like, I'll take care of myself. I opened this daycare with no child care experience, none. And later on, I brought in a girl that had that experience. It was so invaluable, but I was obligated to her. I had to keep her there. She had the credential. She had everything. And so I had to get information. But I went and learned what I needed to learn in order to run that place and run it well. So you want to get as much information as you can to make sure that you're going to run well. So the management and technical assistance grants, even though it might not be cash, a lot of times it's people to help you get all the information you can. It's powered, but only if you get it and use it. Program-related investments, you will be able to give loans and collect small amounts of interest. Some loans you can give out with no interest if you get to that point. I guess, and you might even be able to see that right now. But it is such a possibility, especially if you're starting organizations up under your organization, which you can. I've learned so much lately. If you're starting business, they're businesses, because even though a nonprofit, the difference between the nonprofit and the for-profit is the nonprofit has surplus, which is the amount that you get extra above your expenses, and deficit. That's if you have a loss. And the for-profit has it has profit and loss. Both of them have income. All of them, they have the exact same thing, but they call the end result something different. You got to pay your lights, gas, water, phone, just like everybody else. And so people forget that. So don't forget, your nonprofit is a business and you can be paid. You can be paid. Now that's if you're doing a job. If you're a board member, you might be able to get insurance, you can get some, gas and take some trips and that kind of thing. But if you are actually doing work, you're the project director, project manager, you can be paid. It's a business with a governmental stamp that says you're tax exempt because you're doing what? What are you doing that makes you different than the average business? Charitable. It is charitable, exactly. All right, so the other thing about writing grants is you want to know the governmental priorities. Now, I said we got a different, we've got a different president coming in. And he is, he's a different kind of person. And so we don't know for sure what we've got. I read somewhere that good kings are put up and bad kings are put up, and I don't know where he's going to be. But it could be good. I don't know. But anyway, we need to know what those governmental priorities are. How are you going to find out? You're going to have to kind of follow and watch and see what is going on. What I found out is if you listen to what's being said in the news, usually that's when the grants are going to come out. Because the news is, I hate to say it's kind of controlled, but it's owned by a few people. So only stories that they want out are going to basically get out. So a lot of times what you're hearing in the news is what's being funded. I wonder how come it was working like that? But almost whatever you're hearing in the news is what's being funded at that particular time. So I would say if you don't watch TV, like I'm not a TV watcher, but if you focus on what is trending in the news, that's going to give you pretty much what is being funded. And you pick and choose those things that you want to work with. And hopefully what you're wanting to work with is kind of out there. I'll give you some time to ask me if you got some ideas. Thank you so much. If you got some ideas that you are thinking about and you want to ask me about, I will certainly reach and give you what I'm hearing. Sometimes it does get a little bit prophetic in that area. Okay, spending categories. You want to know where that money is and where it's going. So let's take a look at these spending categories. what I handed out for the group to look over is going to be some supplemental information for grants. So we'll talk about that in a minute, but now just kind of let it set and we'll go back to it in just a minute here. But I wanted to talk about the federal spending and where does the money go. And there's two types of money. There's mandatory spending when it comes to the federal government, and there's discretionary spending. The mandatory spending is money they have to spend because you got so many people turning 62, 65, and it's time for them to get their money. So you got the mandatory spending, and then you have the disabled, you have those people that have to be taken care of. Then you have the discretionary spending, which is a big pot of money that they can spend kind of as they will. The only thing about discretionary money is you might get it the first year. I wrote a grant for somebody one time, and they might have been in line for the grant, but because we had something happen in the country, they moved the money. That happens periodically. So what you don't want to do is you don't want to totally be dependent on your money from one source. You need to be doing funds development and looking for money from multiple sources. So grants could be your main source. And as a foundation, you want to have, we talk about a business plan, we talk about all kinds of plans, but we forget the financial plan. So as a business, as a public charity business, and I want to make sure you get that in mind, it is a business. As a public charity business, you want to make sure that you know where you intend to get your money from. So maybe 50% from government. Like churches, 94% comes from offerings. And then the other money comes from other places, and it's, programs, fees, service, that kind of thing. It might change, it might be changing now, but 94% came from public offerings. Well, you as a foundation have to determine where your money is coming from. You can't wait on discretionary money for everything. So you need to have a plan. And when we talk about our budget, this is going to be like session 2. We will talk about planning that budget, and I will help you. You're going to be so good at budgets, you're going to be saying, ooh, I can do a budget in my sleep, I hope. But anyway, yeah, I think you will. If you use the tool on your flash drive, you'll be able to do that. Okay, but anyway, this is mandatory and discretionary spending, so you want to know what those are. So how is the money spent? Now this is kind of small, and I'm afraid to do too much touching because this has been so temperamental tonight. But I know you really can't see it, but on here it says food and agriculture. That's one section, and it's a very small section. At one time they were talking about, in the news, they were talking about all of this food sustainability, and we've got to get our food sustainability. All of that talk went away, and the healthy restaurants, you can go to restaurants and all the restaurants had a healthy menu and all this. All of that stuff went away. So as these things change, guess what? You have to make adjustments. So you can't make your mission and never go back to it again. You're going to have to revisit that quite often to make sure that you are staying aligned to the changes that are happening everywhere. So food and agriculture has gone down a little bit. Transportation is changing. Uber has made everybody change. It has made everybody make some changes. Science, at one moment was really big. Remember when they were doing so much science? Now it's the conglomerate of science, engineering, technology, math, kind of all together. Energy and environment, international affairs, housing and community, veterans benefits. Veterans slices of the pie is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. The veteran slice of the pie is probably going to be very big during Donald Trump's administration. So if you want to do anything to help veterans, like I told the guy who wants to cut grass, if you want to cut grass and you want to get funded, cut the grass of veterans. Have veterans that are homeless help you do the lawns. I mean, think of veterans. Medicare and health. I'm not sure what they're going to do with that program, but I'm sure there's going to be funds there. Education, if you look at this website called worldometers.info, which I showed you the last time I was here, worldometers.info tells you where the biggest of the money is spent, and you might want to consider this. Because why be on the backside of success all the time? Sometimes, and I know I've been guilty, I wanted to do the business I wanted to do. But I am learning through Charles Koch, you can't do what you want to do. You have to find out what the needs of the people are.
That's right.
So I found out that there's 3 words that can help you be successful, whether you're a nonprofit, for-profit, or whoever. And those words are geographics, demographics, and psychographics. Geographics is where your people are. Because if you're trying to do something that requires a whole lot of people, and you're in a little country town that's only got 5,000 folk, you're probably not going to be successful. But if you are trying to do something in a big city, and you've got a lot of people to choose from, if you took 1% of the population, you're probably good. The demographics has to do with how many people in each category, who's interested in what you're trying to do. You're trying to set up a ski slope in Kansas City, you might have a little problem. Unless you have invented something that's going to give you that ice year round like what you want. But if you're doing a ski slope in Alaska and you've got something different, you've got a dome, something that everybody else don't have, you might do, it might be a little bit better. So you've got to consider other people and their wants and needs. Now the behavior graphics is just how people are feeling. You must know how people are feeling. Because right now, people want to be in a movement. They want to be with something that's going places and doing things because you have so many people in that millennial generation. They don't want to do just what everybody else did. They're like, why are you doing it that way? They're questioning everything. They're questioning, why would you do that? And sometimes they're asking me stuff and I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, I really don't know. But just to irritate them, I'll say, because I've always done it that way, But anyway, so they are coming up with new inventions. They're coming up with new different things, and they're not just doing the status quo. So that's why we have to make adjustments. So I talked about discretionary spending. Categorical spending is where they spend so much money in categories. At one time, remember the green zones? They were spending all this money in the green zone. That was big. So you just have to keep up with what you're hearing in the news and in the trends, because it's like Missouri. It will change. It will change. But once you get your funding, if they give it to you for that first year, you're probably going to have it. Now, as I had said, I think the last time, we got a grant at Hogan where I teach, and it was $600-some thousand a year for 5 years. We got it every year faithfully. And I got to benefit from it because if you scored a certain score, your kid scored off the charts on their testing, then you got a 10% bonus, 10 to 20% bonus every year based on that. So I got to benefit from that grant, yes.
That came out of the grant, the bonus?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it was a teacher incentive grant. So sometimes you can benefit as long as everybody else is benefiting, and you're not just benefiting your family and not just. My son wanted a camcorder one time, so I wrote a play and we showed the play and we used the camcorder to record the play, and so we ended up with the camcorder. It was paid for through the health department, but we partnered with the drug and alcohol abuse. And so while the play was going on, we had them handing out information about drugs and alcohol, and I was able to get them to pay for the play, the place for the theater, everything that went along with it. So no matter what you have envisioned, there's somebody out there with the same vision as you, and you have to make a good marriage. You have to find that person that has that same vision. Block grants. Block grants are certain neighborhoods to where it might go from 55th to 75th, or from Prospect to Paseo. It may just be a certain area. and you'll have to figure out which type of grant. Project grants, those are my favorite, because projects will let you have a little bit more control over what is happening with your organization and with what's happening. Project grants are great, because they will give you a set of parameters, but you can kind of work how you need to. I love those. Formula grants are grants that are more or less, if 80% of your kids, no, 90% of your kids in Kansas City receive free and reduced lunch, everybody in the building is supposed to receive free and reduced lunch. That hasn't quite happened at Hogan, but if 90% or a big percentage of your kids receive free and reduced lunch, everybody gets it, no matter what the income is. Because this one girl was saying, Mom, I'm so happy we don't have to pay for lunch anymore. We used to have to pay for lunch, but I don't have to pay for lunch anymore. And both her parents work, they have plenty of money, but because they have that rule, they don't have to pay. Matching grants, those are my least favorite. You may like them, but what they say, and for churches and those of you who have an established facility, that's okay. But if you don't have an established facility, that could be a problem. The reason an established facility works is, like if you wanted to do a community program in here, this facility is the match. Because a room like this would cost a pretty penny to rent. And you have to remember, when your employees, your members, or whoever are planning anything, there's costs associated with everything. So that's why that budgeting aspect of everything you plan is important, because everybody has to plug in those budget amounts, and that little budget planner that I've embedded in that flash drive gives you that. It gives you that.
Okay.
Yes.
On the matching grants, where are they looking for the funds to come from when you say matching?
Okay, good question. So if they give you 80%, 100,000, they're going to give you 80,000. They expect you to come up with that 20%. Now they will tell you whether your building can be the match, or whether it has to be a cash match. Cash match, I run way far away from them. Run away from them, because I know of somebody who got a $2 million grant match, one for dollar. She never got her $2 million because she didn't get the dollar for dollar match.
So she had to have $2 million on her end.
Yes, but they want a cash match. To me, sometimes that you know that's an impossibility. But if they say an in-kind match, remember you got to learn that vocabulary. The in-kind, in case you don't know that word, in-kind means this building would be the in-kind donation. Or if somebody gives you a loaf of bread, you can use that. If somebody gives you bottled water, you can use that. That becomes a match. Or if you got volunteers that come in and volunteer, those volunteers sometimes can go up to $50 an hour per volunteer. Yes.
Okay, so what if you have donations from other foundations? Would that be?
Yes, that's a match. And so I had a client that was trying to do something, and I won't say that one because we're being recorded. But sometime off the record, I may go into another situation to where, like a lot of times the businesses now, I just put it this way. A lot of the businesses now, the social service type businesses, if you are going to do disabled housing, if you want to do, they've set up these bars, $60,000 to get started. Or if you're going to, open up a disabled home or some of those, they're putting these bars up there that people just cannot reach. The average person can't reach. Well, if you've got partnerships, like Chiefs Play or somebody like that, you got partnerships that could put that up, then you could still do what it is that you need to do. And that's all I'm going to say about that.
Okay, now, along that line, when you said having partners that could put that up, okay? So if we have one foundation that's involved in the project, and we have another foundation that is able to put up the 60,000, then that would complete the project?
That would complete the project. That's why this is phenomenal. Yes. This is phenomenal. You know, we all have a lot to learn. But this is a phenomenal thing because already got your partners. All you got to do is learn who is in the group and learn what they have to offer and what you have to offer. It's not a leak situation, it's a give and take situation. And so when other organizations are suffering, I'm gonna tell you why most people don't get the grant. And now I'm telling new organizations that are not a part of this organization, I am telling them I am not writing grants for you. I am a consultant for you until you are ready. Now, the man with the 100 million, he went and he left the table going to get ready. I think he called me back the next week and he had his partnership with UMKC. He left there with fire under his feet. But for people who don't have those partnerships already, it takes a while to get the funding that you need. It takes time. And so what you all have is the possibility that your partner is sitting right in this room.
Correct.
That's a part of the organization with you.
Correct.
And if you've got the building, you've got the program, you've got the match, you get the 30%, I mean, it's totally amazing. It's amazing. So just because you got a 501c3 does not mean you don't have to get the licenses and permits and all of those things to do whatever programs you're trying to set up. But there is a website out there called expertratings.com. Expertratings.com will allow your people to get the personal training license and some of those licenses from $9.99 to $199 online. You don't even have to leave your house. So you might want to consider that when you are changing to different types of programs and trying to add in programs. Because you definitely want to be legal. You don't want to be having a good time, enjoying yourself, and then there comes a knock on the door like I did with my first child care center. Ooh, I was happy than a felark. I was at home with my kids. I had the extra little kids, and I was doing child care. Oh my God, I was in heaven. And I got the knock on the door. And it was the state. Because I lived one door into Grandview. And Grandview had different rules than the state of Missouri. The state of Missouri said you could keep 10 kids and yours didn't count. But Grandview said you could only keep 6 kids and yours do count. So you know I was out of ratio and everything, and they shut me down. So I had to go and find a building rather quickly. I did find the building. I went and talked to this man, and this will happen for some of you. All you got to do is have the faith. I went and told him that I'm interested in opening a child care center. I've done this. I've got children, this. And I left there that day with the key. No money exchange, no application exchange, and none of that. With the key. And that's when I started to build the child care center at 107th and Blue Ridge. The money is not leaving the planet. It's here. And we just have to go after it. So you want to make sure that you have those licenses and permits, the states, the EIN numbers, the DUNS number, the 501c3. And guys, I'm going a lot slower this time, but I will incorporate anything that we don't finish into the next class, because I want you to have a good foundation to where you can go from here and you can actually do this and feel comfortable that you can do it. So you want your employer identification numbers if you don't have it, but I think you guys already have that, so I'm going to skip some of this part, but I'm going to go to that paper that you have and try to spend the last amount of time on there because this is extremely important. So what the one that you're going to look at as a group is this website. But first, let's look at the one to where just you have it yourself. That is that's printed directly from the federal government's website. It is this one. Yeah, it's this one. Okay. This is printed directly from the federal government's website. It is grant number 11.302. It's 11.302. Those 5 numbers are probably the most important numbers that you will have from this particular grant. Now, how much is this grant giving out? Can you look at this? $300,000. And what's the minimum you can ask for? Zero. That's the floor. So the floor is the minimum. The ceiling is the maximum that you can ask for. This grant doesn't give you averages. It doesn't tell you how soon the money's going to be given out. It doesn't give you anything. Well, let me say this set of instructions. This is a couple of pages, but if you really print out the instructions are probably going to be 150 pages. But what I like to do is just kind of skim over the grant before I go further. So this would be the first step. And I got this from grants.gov. Grants.gov. So this particular grant is for organizations that do have a 501c3, and it does community development programs, like what you might want to do. But I gave you one to look at as a group. I gave you another one. And it's about this same grant, which I got from here, cfda.gov. The difference between this one that comes from grants.gov and cfda.gov is the fact that grants.gov, those grants, if it's on there, it's available usually now. cfda.gov just explains the grant. So if you go through that paper that I put on the table for you to look at as a group, you will see the estimated amount of time when they're going to give the grant out. So you might think that one might not be good, the one that you're sharing. You might think it's not good because it does not tell you the dates that the grants go out. But it gives you information that this one does not give you. It gives you information that this one doesn't. It gives you when you can expect to receive the money. And most people, that's the first question they ask me. How long is it going to take before I get the money? Well, if you look at cfda.gov and put this number in, it will tell you some personal things about the grant. Now, I wrote a grant at Hogan not too long ago, and I got $90,000, but I wrote the grant for $100,000. I wrote it overnight because, the situation. It was something that had to be done. So I put it together overnight, and we got $90,000. Why? Because I did not know what I'm telling you right now. This will give you some information, but that other one will tell you what the money is being spent on. So it keeps you from spending hours reading that 150-page document. It will tell you you can use the money for this, that, and other. So let me read some of the categories for you.
Now, before you go too far off the 90,000
Uh-huh.
that you wrote overnight, how long did it take to get funded?
That one was like a 30 to 45 day. And most of them are a lot faster now. But in order for you to know for sure, you need to look at that site and it will tell you. Like this particular grant, it tells you the type of assistance. Can somebody look at, now this is the one that's multiple pages. What type of assistance is it? Groups. It's a project grant. Which one did I say I like?
Project.
Because you have a lot more flexibility with the project grant. This grant tells you the uses and restrictions. Guess why I lost the $10,000? Because I didn't know the uses and restrictions and I didn't have time to read 150 pages. All I did was read what I'm going to tell you is most important. So if you go to this website with the number and read the uses and restrictions, you know what you can spend that money on. So it helps you in putting together a fundable budget. Now, right now, I'm calling myself the Harriet Tubman of the 501c3. I've never missed a passenger. I can't say that with grants. Now, when I was writing grants for school, I had an 80 to 90% track record. But once I started coming home and writing for my familiar friends and brothers who were still learning, my track record was not as high. And I realized I am no longer a grant writer for them. I am their consultant until they get ready. Then I can write a grant. So they're not disappointed and I'm not disappointed because I want you to be funded. But we have to set some parameters. We have to get some things together first. Then you can go. And so that's what we're doing here. When you get through with this, you're going to be ready. The only way you won't be ready is you act like some of my high school students. Oh, but anyway, you will be ready. So this tells you the eligibility requirements, your beneficiaries, who can benefit from what you're doing. All of that is on here. And this is not even really talked about that much on the government website. And I'm like, is this a trick? Because if those numbers, those 5-digit numbers, 13.471, they're not even really promoted But that's where you find most of your information. So you go to CFDA and put that number in. Once you find the grant that you think you want, everything you need pretty much is here. Now, I'm not saying don't read the document, because I'm going to show you what you need to read from the document. But this is going to give you basically all the information that you need to start applying. Now, this is for those big federal grants. This is not for the small grants that I'm going to show you how to do. I'm going to show you how to do the first night we do the practicum, we're going to do a small grant. And then the second night, I'm going to show you how a federal grant works. So you'll know how to do a little bit of both. So if you want the big money, you can go for that. If you want the small money, you can go for that. But this right here gives you everything that you would need pretty much for this grant. Yes.
What's small money?
To me, 50,000. But if you want to go smaller than that, you can. You can. There are $1,000 grants, there are $500 grants, but to me, all the paperwork they be asking you to do for $500 and $1,000. Now, you're talking to a woman that had experience, because I walked at UMKC with my master's robe and my little gold tassel and all of this, and my professor gave me an incomplete for my master's program with one of my classes. It was my thesis, because the thesis was you choose to write a thesis, or you can choose to help somebody in your community that is doing educational type activities. So I helped Family Conservancy. I wrote 3 grants for them. They got all 3. But because they were not $1 million grants, she gave me an incomplete and says it's just as easy to write $1 million grant as it is to write a $75,000 grant, which is what they got. And I'm like, But anyway, she gave me an incomplete. But you know what I learned? Even though I fought it and I didn't end up doing it, I ended up with an A-. She was right. It's just as easy to write $1 million grant as it is to write a $75,000 grant. Same paperwork. Same paperwork. But now you can do the $10,000, you can do the $5,000. Good practice.
You know, $1 million sound good.
Yeah, good practice. Now, sir, if you go to my Facebook and you go down a little bit where the MacArthur Foundation sent us their results, people, those 6,000 folk got cut because they didn't scale big enough. So you can keep looking for the $1,000 and the $20 if you want to, because some of the grants will let you go for 0 if you want. But you might want to set your sights on what you're really envisioning. Stop being scared to really see the vision, to see the future, to see what you really want.
Can we repeat that? Stop being what?
Stop being afraid.
Okay.
To see the picture. And it's important to begin with the end in mind.
Right, the big picture.
Yeah, the big picture. It's important to begin with the end in mind. Yes, I'm going to spend the rest of the time on questions, and we will start here the next go round.
So how do we find these CFDA numbers, the different ones?
You're going to go to grants.gov and put in keywords. So we're going to have to learn how to work with those keywords. So you go to grants.gov, put in the keywords, and you'll find some of those grants. But to really get down dirty with the grant, you want to go to cfda.gov and take a look at how long is it going to be before I can get this grant. What can I spend this money on? Yeah.
But do we have like a floor ceiling for seed money, grants and time?
Okay.
That, time period to get those types of grants?
Here we go. This will tell you. Every grant has its Bible, or it has its rules and documentation. And everything you need to know about that particular grant is here, nothing else. If it says that you can ask for $1 million for seed money, that's what they want you, well, not necessarily $1 million. That's when you have the other documents so you can look and see how much do they give out on average. And almost every grant has this word you need to put down, database. They have a database of grants that are in there with abstracts from where they have given out money before. So you can go through Ford Foundation. You can go through and read the Ford Foundation. Ford Foundation gives anywhere from 100 to 500,000. But then when I looked on their website, I saw some people that got 1.6 million. So Ford Foundation gives out up to 500,000, they say. And they have all kinds of grants, 1,730 grants I think is what they've given. Those grants that they've given have abstracts. Look at their abstract and find one that's been funded and find your program. I like what you said. You said under your breath, try to hide over there, but I heard you. What did you say? Do you remember what you said? Follow the money. I don't necessarily say follow the money, but I say find the money and then improve your program. I used to say find the money and create your program. Oh Lord. Find your money and then create the program. But find the money and improve your program, for sure. Find the money, improve your program based on where the money is. Don't try to just go look for money to do exactly what you want to do, because it's going to slow you down. If you want to be slowed down, get to the point where I'm only going to do what I want to do. I'm not going to do anything else. If I have anyone else tell me that, I'm going to tell them, sweetheart, you got to find another grant writer, because I cannot do it. I need some flexibility if you want to be funded, because the funders are giving the money for you to do what they want done. Now, hopefully, it's going to be a good marriage. Hopefully, you're going to find a funder that's willing to fund what you want, but you may have to have some flexibility. It's called employees. You don't want to do it, don't. Hire someone to do it.
That's it.
Okay.
That's a good point.
Yeah. Okay, thank you all.